Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com. Today I want to talk to you about what about natural disasters and the law of attraction. Sometimes people experience things like natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, things like that, and they wonder why their faith did not bring about the good results they were believing to receive. They're experiencing this negative event. It's demonstrably negative. It is objectively negative. Why did this happen if the law of attraction works, supposedly? So are natural disasters things that show the lack of the law of attraction working, that it doesn't work in all cases or doesn't work for certain people or just doesn't work at all? Maybe it's placebo effect for other people. No, it actually shows that the law of attraction does work exactly like I've described it in my books, God's Secret Law of Attraction and Co-Creators of the God. That is not to blame the individual suffering that negative experience, because that is oftentimes what people do. I think it's kind of a knee-jerk defense. Like they feel like they're being attacked because somebody is saying, well, I don't think the law of attraction works because this negative thing happened to me. I was believing, how could it happen in that case? And so they get defensive and start trying to blame the other person. And that's not where I'm coming from on this. There is, of course, you have to first, the most obvious thing needs to be addressed is, what were you believing for? Because if you were believing for a disaster in your life and you got it, what is there to discuss then? You got exactly what you believed for. So that has to be addressed because a lot of people are believing for disasters. Now, the issue is they weren't believing for a natural disaster, earthquake or a tornado or a hurricane or a storm or a tsunami or whatever. They weren't believing for that. They didn't have a specific thing in mind. They just believed that negative things were coming their way. So you can't, from that mindset, produce the life that you want to produce a good life. I guess you can produce a life you want to produce, but unfortunately, the life that you're wanting to produce in that mindset is a negative life, a life of negative experiences. But what about the person who wasn't thinking that way? What if they were believing God for the best? You know, the scripture says in Proverbs 4:23, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. I knew someone that went through a tornado. This is a person of faith. This is a person who believed for goodness of God. They focused and followed Philippians 4 and believed on things that are lovely and of good report. And yet a tornado hit their house. They weren't harmed. Their animals weren't harmed. No one was harmed in the neighborhood. But they did experience negative consequences to their home. That all got fixed and everything, and it was no problem. They weren't out of the home. They were very minorly inconvenienced as far as there was no power for a few hours and things like that. So overall, it wasn't a big deal. It was a minor inconvenience. They had damage to the house that got repaired easily. Everything was pretty much all right. But why did it even happen in the first place? Well, this individual went back and reflected on their mindset. That people were talking about a storm could come through. Now, they were a person who focused on things of good report, but they had this subconscious nervousness about a natural disaster happening because when they moved out to that place, originally a tornado had hit right before they moved out there. So they had this nervous mentality about tornadoes in this area. The area itself actually was not a tornado prone area, but they had that lingering suspicion a tornado might hit. It hit right before I moved out there. So when there's talk of storms and potential tornadoes, while they were focusing and thinking about the positive, they had that underlying gut feeling of negative experiences of a tornado. And it took for them to have the experience of that natural disaster in their life to even realize and bring out that underlying deep-rooted, deep-seated belief that a tornado is going to affect my life again. So truly, according to their faith, it was unto them. It was done unto them. Now, what about people just going through life? I've dealt with this in other videos, and this is very important. When you are not actively controlling and choosing your life, things get chosen for you. Life happens to you. You become that perpetual victim of life. Time and chance happens to you. You no longer are in the driver's seat walking with God, but instead you become a passenger on the ship of life, so to speak, and someone else, and that someone else being the world and other people, are choosing for you. And this is a hard lesson to learn because many people want to believe they're in control, but they don't want to be in control because there's more responsibility required. And there's also who to blame in a negative situation if you're in control. It all falls back on you. Take all responsibility in that situation. Even if somebody else did something that you didn't do, but you had to experience the result of it, you still have to take control over that and take responsibility for it. And most people don't want that kind of responsibility. And that is understandable to a certain extent. But the problem is, if you don't take responsibility for your life, if you don't daily, actively choose this day the goodness of God, choose blessing, choose life, choose to serve God, you are at the mercy, which isn't very merciful, of the world, of other people, of the whims and failings of other people. And that is not the way you want to live life. And that even goes for natural disasters. That does not mean that you are causing natural disasters in your life. But it does mean that you, in that situation, existing in a world where there are things called natural disasters, where those things can happen, you can go through them unscathed, experiencing the best results possible if you consistently be in that right vibration of focusing on the good, thinking about God, having faith for His blessing and goodness in your life. And the last thing I want to address, which is very important, and it's going to annoy some people, but it has to be said, and it's very true. Sometimes these things that look bad on the surface push you toward the goodness that you want. And you don't see how this is something that is required in the particular situation you're in to get you to that good result. This happens so often when people are believing God for more money, a better place in life. And then they get fired from their job. And they say, well, see, this law of attraction stuff doesn't work. I can't tell you how many times I've had people tell me they were believing for more money, better experiences in their job, and then they get fired. Not seeing that down the line, that is exactly what they needed to push them out of that comfort zone of being in that job they're miserable in, that's not paying them the money they want and never will, into the real place where they need to be, starting that business or getting that new job that pays more, that is more of a blessing, and is what they wanted. But they had to have that perceived negative experience of being fired to get themselves in the position to receive the best results. And sometimes with natural disasters and stuff, it can push you away from a certain area. And then you go and you meet and you associate and fellowship with other people in a different area that you move to that now creates the best life that you could have possibly had. I've heard of people having these negative experiences and then going and meeting their spouse. They never would have met because they never would have been in that area, never could have came into their presence except for that negative event pushing them that direction. That is not to say just put a positive spin on these bad things, natural disasters, because many people suffer a lot of horrible consequences from them. This is just to say you have to look at your life, look for the good, look for God's blessing, see how God is working all things for your good. And of course, deal with, as I did in the beginning of this video, did you believe for this? Were you somehow subconsciously fearful and worried and believing for a negative experience and then get it? Because if that's the case, that's an easy fix. You now know the issue and you can fix it. If it's just something that was experienced, what is the good that can come from it? What is the good that you can see in it? What is the good that you can receive from it? Maybe you had nothing to do with it. You can't take any responsibility for why this happened in your life. What is the good? What good did it push you to? What good did it bring about that maybe you otherwise would never have received because you would never get into the position that the natural disaster put you in? And like I said, this is not to put a rosy, flowery, positive spin on a negative event. It is to look for life to be the best that it can possibly be, to see the good in life, and to, most importantly, as Proverbs 4:23 says, to keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. My friend, keep your heart with all diligence. This is the cornerstone of your life becoming the life you want it to be. Walking with God, focused on His goodness, keeping your heart with all diligence, and experiencing the goodness and eternal blessing of God in your life each and every day. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.